The sprawling Imperium of man, a galaxy-spanning empire, thrives on a fragile web of faith, technology, and brutal order. At its heart lies a truth obscured by layers of myth and deception, a reality so deeply buried that even those closest to it may only suspect its presence. The history of the Imperium is a labyrinth of paradoxes, where legends intertwine with facts and deliberate fabrications are upheld as divine truths. In this shadowed arena of secrecy, one tale stands out, a story veiled in mystery and laced with implications that could unravel the very fabric of the Imperium itself: the Royal Navigator. Navigators are indispensable to the Imperium, their mutant gift enabling them to steer humanity's void ships through the roiling tides of the warp. Their third eye, a unique psychic mutation, grants them the ability to perceive and chart safe routes through this otherwise lethal dimension. Without them, the Imperium would be paralyzed, its far-flung worlds isolated and vulnerable to annihilation. Navigators have long been considered the unsung lifeline of the Emperor's vision, but this dependence has also fostered a dangerous secrecy. The Navigators, organized into ancient noble houses, jealously guard their secrets, and the truth of their origins remains one of the Imperium's most tightly controlled mysteries. Amid this backdrop of shadowy politics and ancient bloodlines, whispers have emerged over the millennia, rumors of a figure called the Royal Navigator. The title itself suggests grandeur, a figure of unmatched skill, authority, or influence within the Navigator houses. Yet official records make no mention of such a being, and the Adeptus Administratum, ever meticulous in its chronicling of imperial affairs, maintains a conspicuous silence on the subject. Could the Royal Navigator be a forgotten savior, a sinister tyrant, or something far stranger? Historians, heretics, and rogue scholars have long debated whether the Royal Navigator is fact, fiction, or fabrication. Some claim it is a deliberate lie, spun by the Imperium to conceal a darker truth about humanity's dependence on the warp. Others believe it is a distortion of real events, a historical figure elevated to near-mythical status by the passage of time. A handful of theorists go further, arguing that the Royal Navigator might never have existed at all, a grand illusion crafted to serve an agenda too terrifying to contemplate. The stakes of uncovering the truth are immense. To question the imperial narrative is to flirt with heresy, a crime punishable by death or worse. Yet the tantalizing possibility of discovering a hidden chapter of humanity's story is a siren call to the bold, the desperate, and the damned. As we embark on this journey into the unknown, we must tread carefully, for the truths we unearth may challenge the very foundations of the Imperium. In the vastness of the galaxy, where truth is mutable and history is a weapon, the story of the Royal Navigator looms large as both a mystery and a warning. What lies at its core? Salvation, betrayal, or madness? The answers may be closer than we think, yet more elusive than we could ever imagine. Let us begin. At the heart of the Royal Navigator narrative lies a complex web of players, each contributing to its creation and perpetuation, whether knowingly or as unwitting pawns. These participants span the breadth of the Imperium's intricate hierarchy, from its highest echelons to its shadowy fringes. Understanding their roles offers a glimpse into the enormity of the lie and the forces required to maintain it. The first and most significant group are the Navigator houses themselves. These ancient dynasties, whose genetic legacy grants them the rare ability to traverse the warp, have jealously guarded their power for millennia. For them, the concept of a Royal Navigator serves a dual purpose, as a tool of unity and a shield for their secrets. The houses operate in a realm of alliances, rivalries, and careful manipulation. Their role in the creation of the Royal Navigator myth was driven by a need to present an idealized figurehead, a symbol of their indispensable value to the Imperium. Through this construct, they sought to secure their position, ward off external scrutiny, and suppress internal dissent. Next, there are the agents of the Adeptus Administratum, the bureaucratic engine of the Imperium. While their involvement may appear incidental at first glance, their role was pivotal in codifying and disseminating the narrative. Scribes, chroniclers, and archivists within this vast institution were instrumental in embedding the Royal Navigator into the historical records. Whether acting under orders or motivated by the pursuit of their own agendas, these individuals ensured that the story was enshrined in official documents, reinforced by decades of repetition and deliberate omissions of contradictory evidence. The ecclesiarchy, ever vigilant in shaping the spiritual fabric of the Imperium, also played a critical part. While the Royal Navigator is not explicitly linked to the divine in official doctrine, its myth aligns conveniently with the ecclesiarchy's broader goals. The idea of a singular, almost messianic figure among the navigators could serve as a subtle reminder of humanity's collective reliance on the Emperor's divine plan. By supporting the narrative, the ecclesiarchy added an air of reverence to the tale, ensuring it would endure as an almost sacred truth. The influence of the Inquisition cannot be overlooked. Tasked with preserving the stability of the Imperium, members of the Inquisition often employed deception as a means to an end. In the case of the Royal Navigator, certain factions within this clandestine organization saw the value in perpetuating the lie. For them, the story was a convenient tool to manipulate the navigator houses, control access to sensitive warp navigation knowledge, and suppress any threats to the established order. Their role was one of quiet orchestration, pulling strings from the shadows to ensure the narrative served their purposes. Also entangled in the myth are rogue traders, whose vast freedom to operate beyond the conventional bounds of imperial authority granted them unique insights into the navigators and their practices. Some of these independent operators propagated tales of the Royal Navigator, either for profit or as part of deals struck with the navigator houses. Their accounts, often exaggerated or fabricated, added a layer of mystique to the story, blending truth and fiction into an almost inseparable tapestry. Finally, there are the discontented factions within the navigator houses themselves. Not all navigators are content with the rigid structures imposed by their noble kin. Dissidents, outcasts, and ambitious rivals within the houses saw the Royal Navigator myth as both a threat and an opportunity. For some, it was a convenient scapegoat for their grievances, a symbol of the tyranny they sought to overthrow. For others, it was a tool to exploit, a means of advancing their own position within the labyrinthine hierarchy of navigator politics. Together, these groups formed an unspoken coalition, each contributing to the myth of the Royal Navigator in their own way. Some acted out of self-interest, others out of duty, and still others out of desperation. Yet their combined efforts wove a story so compelling and pervasive that it became indistinguishable from truth, a cornerstone of the Imperium's fragile stability. The roots of the Royal Navigator myth stretch deep into the tumultuous history of the Imperium, arising from a convergence of necessity, fear, and ambition. The foundations for such a grand fabrication were laid in the earliest days of the Imperium's expansion, during a time when humanity's survival hinged on its ability to traverse the warp. The challenges of interstellar travel, the volatile politics of the navigator houses, and the Imperium's obsession with control all contributed to the creation of this monumental deception. The initial impetus for the myth can be traced to humanity's precarious position in the galaxy. The warp, while essential for faster-than-light travel, remained a domain of chaos and unpredictability. Without skilled navigators, the Imperium's ships would be lost to its treacherous currents, stranding entire fleets and jeopardizing the fragile links between the Imperium's worlds. Yet, this dependence on a single group of mutants sparked unease among the Imperium's ruling elites. The navigator houses, though loyal in practice, were entities apart, their insular nature and monopoly over warp navigation fostering suspicion and resentment. A narrative that could simultaneously glorify and contain the navigators was seen as an ideal solution to this delicate balance. At the same time, The burgeoning Imperium faced internal and external threats that necessitated a cohesive identity. The Imperium's sheer scale required the integration of countless cultures, belief systems, and power structures, often through force or subterfuge. The fabrication of myths was a tried and tested method of fostering unity, and the Royal Navigator story fit neatly into this broader strategy. By creating a symbolic figure that embodied both the Navigator's vital role and their subservience to the Imperium's greater goals, the narrative served as a tool for maintaining stability while subtly reminding the Navigator houses of their place within the Imperial hierarchy. Political considerations also played a significant role in shaping the myth. The Navigator houses, while indispensable, were fractious and prone to internecine rivalries. Their power struggles often threatened to spill over into the wider Imperium, destabilizing key sectors and creating opportunities for rebellion or outside interference. The introduction of a unifying figure in the form of the Royal Navigator offered a way to manage these tensions. It provided a focal point for loyalty and cooperation among the houses, while also serving as a mechanism for deflecting scrutiny from their internal disputes. The myth also served practical purposes in the Imperium's ceaseless propaganda efforts. During periods of crisis, such as galaxy-wide conflicts or warp disruptions, the tale of the Royal Navigator was a convenient morale booster, a reminder of humanity's supposed mastery over the stars. The story's inherent grandeur and mystery made it an effective tool for inspiring confidence among the Imperial citizenry and fostering a sense of awe towards the Imperium's institutions. In addition to these external pressures, the Navigator houses themselves had reasons to embrace and propagate the myth. The existence of a Royal Navigator provided a layer of mystique that enhanced their authority, both within the Imperium and among their own ranks. It allowed them to project an image of unity and purpose, even as they engaged in fierce competition behind the scenes. Furthermore, the story acted as a smokescreen, obscuring the more unsavory aspects of their practices and genetic experiments, which could have provoked backlash from both the ecclesiarchy and the Inquisition. Finally, the narrative aligned with broader trends in the Imperium's development. The consolidation of power under a single, unassailable figure was a recurring theme in Imperial culture, whether in the form of the Emperor himself or other symbolic leaders. The Royal Navigator myth was a natural extension of this pattern, adapted to the specific needs of the Navigator houses and their role in warp travel. These conditions collectively laid the groundwork for the creation of the Royal Navigator myth. It was a story born out of the Imperium's desperate need for order and cohesion, shaped by the complex interplay of political, social, and practical considerations. Over time, it evolved from a calculated fabrication into an enduring cornerstone of the Imperial narrative, its true origins obscured by centuries of deliberate obfuscation and uncritical repetition. The tale of the Royal Navigator, from its inception to its entrenchment as a cornerstone of Imperial legend, unfolds in a series of calculated steps and historical developments. Each stage of this process reveals the deliberate efforts to craft, reinforce, and disseminate the myth, ensuring its enduring influence across the Imperium. The earliest phase can be traced to the initial codification of the story within the archives of the Adeptus Administratum. Records, often contradictory or vague, began to surface, referencing a figure of unparalleled mastery over warp navigation. These documents, though sparse and ambiguous, were meticulously positioned within broader historical accounts, lending an air of authenticity to the narrative. This careful placement allowed the story to seed itself within official chronicles, where it would remain largely unquestioned for millennia. As the myth began to take root, the Navigator houses embraced and expanded upon it. By subtly incorporating references to the Royal Navigator into their genealogical records and internal lore, they solidified the figure's presence within their own traditions. This integration was not uniform. Different houses adapted the narrative to align with their individual histories and interests, creating variations that only deepened the story's complexity. Over time, these fragmented versions coalesced into a cohesive, if elusive, legend, one that transcended any single house or region. The ecclesiarchy, though initially distant from the story, became a key player in its dissemination during the periods of religious fervor that swept the Imperium. Sermons, hymns, and devotional texts began to include veiled references to the royal navigator, portraying the figure as a divine instrument of the emperor's will. These subtle inclusions were designed to inspire awe and reinforce faith, particularly during times of crisis when the stability of the Imperium was most threatened. Parallel to this, rogue traders and other independent operators contributed their own embellishments. Tales of miraculous warp journeys, attributed to the intervention of the Royal Navigator, began to circulate in the far-flung reaches of the galaxy. These stories, often exaggerated or entirely fabricated, added a layer of mystique and wonder to the myth. Over time, such accounts were absorbed into the broader narrative, further blurring the line between reality and fiction. A significant development in the propagation of the myth occurred during one of the Imperium's great wars, when the story of the Royal Navigator was invoked to rally support and morale. Official proclamations credited the figure with guiding critical fleets to safety, presenting the tale as both a historical fact and a source of inspiration. This marked a turning point in the narrative's evolution, as it transitioned from a relatively obscure legend to a widely recognized symbol of the Imperium's resilience. In the centuries that followed, the Inquisition became an unspoken guardian of the story. By targeting dissenters and erasing conflicting accounts, they ensured that the narrative remained unchallenged. This campaign of suppression extended to the Navigator houses themselves, where factions that questioned the validity of the myth were silenced or marginalized. These actions, though covert, played a crucial role in preserving the story's integrity and preventing the emergence of alternative interpretations. The final stage in the entrenchment of the Royal Navigator myth came through its incorporation into the training and indoctrination of Imperial personnel. From the Schola Progenium to the ranks of the Imperial Navy, the tale was presented as an unquestionable truth woven into lessons on loyalty, sacrifice, and the Emperor's divine guidance. This institutionalization ensured that the story would endure across generations, embedded in the very fabric of Imperial culture. Throughout these stages, the myth of the Royal Navigator evolved and adapted, shaped by the needs and ambitions of its various creators and perpetuators. What began as a calculated fabrication grew into a sprawling legend, its tendrils reaching into every corner of the Imperium. By the time of its full maturity, the story had become indistinguishable from truth, a testament to the Imperium's ability to control its narrative and suppress inconvenient realities. The turning point in the story of the Royal Navigator occurred not with the dramatic unveiling of a savior, but with the revelation of a vast and deliberate deception. What was long believed to be an inspiring tale of human ingenuity and courage proved to be a calculated manipulation, a facade designed to mask an unsettling reality and maintain control over the fragile unity of the Imperium. The crux of the deception was a singular event, the supposed intervention of the Royal Navigator during a catastrophic warp crisis that threatened to sever key Imperial sectors. Historical accounts speak of a moment when the warp storms grew so ferocious that entire fleets were stranded and vital trade routes became impassable. It was during this period, according to official records, that the Royal Navigator emerged. Descriptions of this figure paint a picture of a being of unparalleled skill, one who single-handedly guided Imperial ships through the tempestuous warp, ensuring the survival of countless worlds. The story, immortalized in official proclamations and reinforced through sermons and naval traditions, became a cornerstone of Imperial morale. It was heralded as proof of humanity's divine right to dominion over the stars and a testament to the Emperor's enduring protection. Statues were erected and oaths sworn in the name of this enigmatic savior. Yet, as later investigations would uncover, this event was far from the miraculous intervention it was claimed to be. The truth lay in the clandestine actions of the Navigator houses and their allies within the Adeptus Administratum. During the crisis, the warp storms indeed presented an existential threat, but the response was far more calculated and grim than the legend suggested. The Navigator houses, desperate to maintain their monopoly and control over warp navigation, orchestrated a bold gambit. They deliberately spread the tale of the Royal Navigator as a unifying symbol, knowing that such a figure would galvanize the Imperium and divert attention from their internal struggles and questionable methods. Behind the scenes, fleets were not guided by a mythical hero, but by an unprecedented collaboration of the most skilled navigators from multiple houses. These navigators, working under conditions of extreme secrecy, relied on experimental techniques and dangerous warp manipulation to chart paths through the storms. The cost of these efforts was staggering, with countless navigators succumbing to psychic burnout or worse. However, these sacrifices were omitted from the official narrative, replaced instead with the convenient fiction of a single heroic figure. Further complicating matters, evidence suggests that the warp crisis itself may not have been entirely natural. Rogue elements within the Navigator houses, seeking to consolidate power, are suspected of exacerbating the storms through illicit means. By creating a crisis and then presenting a solution in the form of the Royal Navigator, they effectively ensured their position as indispensable to the Imperium. This revelation casts the entire episode in a new and chilling light, transforming it from a tale of salvation to one of manipulation and engineered desperation. The decision to cement the myth of the Royal Navigator was not without its opponents. Within the Navigator houses, some individuals protested the fabrication, arguing that it undermined the truth of their contributions and dishonored those who had given their lives during the crisis. These dissenters were silenced, often through exile or more sinister means, their voices erased from history to protect the integrity of the lie. For the wider Imperium, the revelation of this truth remains hidden. The story of the Royal Navigator continues to inspire and reassure, its deeper implications obscured by centuries of propaganda and ritualized veneration. Yet, for those who uncover the fragments of the real story, the lie serves as a stark reminder of the lengths to which the Imperium will go to maintain its control, even at the cost of sacrificing its own. In the end, the Royal Navigator was never meant to be discovered as an individual, for they did not exist as such. Instead, they were an idea, a carefully constructed myth designed to serve the needs of an empire that thrives on faith, fear, and the suppression of inconvenient truths. The myth endures not because it is real, but because it is necessary, a symbol that holds together the fraying fabric of the Imperium in a galaxy that grows ever darker. The establishment of the Royal Navigator myth left an indelible mark on the galaxy, reshaping the Imperium's political, social, and strategic dynamics. While the figure itself was a fabrication, the consequences of its creation rippled far beyond the Navigator houses, influencing humanity's trajectory and altering the balance of power in the cosmos. This narrative of triumph and unity masked profound shifts that brought both opportunity and peril. For humanity, the myth became a cornerstone of confidence in warp navigation, reinforcing the perception of control over the most dangerous element of interstellar travel. The story of the Royal Navigator reassured countless worlds that their connection to the greater Imperium was unassailable, even in the face of increasing warp instability. This belief inspired renewed expansion efforts, emboldening the Imperium to reclaim lost territories and push its borders further into uncharted space. With every tale of miraculous journeys attributed to this mythical figure, humanity's resolve was strengthened, fostering a collective belief in their destiny to dominate the stars. On a practical level, the myth created a rallying point for the Navigator houses, encouraging unprecedented collaboration in moments of crisis. While their rivalries continued unabated, the shared narrative of the Royal Navigator provided a framework for alliances, allowing them to pool resources and expertise when the survival of the Imperium was at stake. This newfound cohesion enhanced humanity's capacity to weather warp-related challenges, from localized disruptions to galaxy-spanning phenomena. As a result, the Imperium's fleets became more resilient, able to adapt to the treacherous currents of the warp with increased precision and reliability. The narrative also enabled humanity to refine and expand its use of advanced navigational technologies. While the Royal Navigator was a symbolic figure, the myth's enduring presence drove innovation within the Navigator houses. Experimental warp routing methods, psychic amplifiers, and warp forecasting systems saw rapid development, spurred by the house's desire to maintain their indispensability. These advancements had cascading effects, improving not only interstellar travel, but also humanity's capacity for strategic warfare and logistical coordination across vast distances. However, the myth was not without its darker consequences. The propagation of the Royal Navigator tale and the Imperium's growing confidence in its control over warp navigation created an over-reliance on the Navigator houses. This dependence deepened humanity's vulnerability to any instability within these houses, whether due to internal strife, genetic degradation, or external manipulation. The illusion of unity fostered by the myth concealed underlying fragilities that could unravel the Imperium's interconnected systems if exposed. For other species, the rise of the Royal Navigator myth posed an evolving threat. The Imperium's renewed vigor in exploration and conquest brought humanity into conflict with Xenos empires at an unprecedented scale. As the Imperium expanded its reach, it encountered resistance from established alien civilizations whose borders were encroached upon by this seemingly unstoppable force. To these species, the Royal Navigator became a symbol of humanity's arrogance and a harbinger of destruction. For every world secured under the banner of the Imperium, another faced annihilation, subjugation, or exile. The myth also inspired fear among species attuned to the warp. Psyker-heavy races, already wary of humanity's aggressive stance, perceived the legend of the Royal Navigator as evidence of deeper, more dangerous warp manipulation. Rumors of experimental techniques and the increased psychic strain placed on navigators raised alarms about the potential destabilization of the Imperium itself. Some Xenos factions began to see humanity not merely as an adversary, but as a destabilizing force that threatened the fabric of the galaxy. In fostering belief in an idealized figure, the myth inadvertently created a precedent for further fabrications. Within the Imperium, factions began to exploit the narrative framework of the Royal Navigator to advance their own agendas, spreading tales of other supposed saviors or miracles. This practice diluted the integrity of Imperial records, making it increasingly difficult to discern truth from fabrication. Over time, this proliferation of myths risked undermining the very faith the Imperium sought to cultivate as discrepancies and contradictions accumulated. The galaxy-wide impact of the Royal Navigator myth serves as a testament to the power of belief, both as a tool for unity and as a weapon of deception. It brought humanity renewed purpose and technological innovation, yet it also sowed seeds of vulnerability and discord. For the other species of the galaxy, it represented both a direct threat and a cautionary tale, a reminder of the Imperium's capacity for manipulation and its relentless drive for dominion, no matter the cost. Among the many fascinating aspects of the Royal Navigator myth, one of the most compelling is its connection to the mysterious origins of the Navigator gene itself and the ancient technologies said to underpin warp navigation. While the myth serves as a carefully constructed lie, it has inadvertently sparked centuries of speculation and debate about the deeper truths it might obscure. These unique aspects have captivated fan discussions and scholarly debates alike, making them a central point of intrigue in the broader tapestry of Imperial history. Central to the allure of the myth is the idea that the Royal Navigator represents the pinnacle of human adaptation to the warp. While the figure is fictional, the story has led many to wonder about the potential for humanity to refine or evolve its ability to traverse the Imperium. The question of whether navigators could one day achieve even greater mastery over the warp, beyond what is currently known, has fueled endless theorizing. This curiosity extends to the genetic experiments conducted by the Navigator houses, some of which are rumored to have pursued the creation of a true royal bloodline, capable of navigating even the most unstable warp currents. Whether such experiments have borne fruit or resulted in disastrous consequences remains a closely guarded secret. Another captivating element tied to the myth is the supposed existence of ancient devices, remnants of humanity's dark age of technology that could enhance a navigator's abilities to unprecedented levels. These technologies, often whispered about in hushed tones, are said to be capable of stabilizing warp routes, shielding ships from the Imperium's dangers, or even bypassing the need for navigators entirely. Some accounts suggest that the Royal Navigator's legend might have been partially inspired by a prototype device of this nature, discovered and subsequently lost in the chaos of the Imperium's formative years. The existence of such devices poses a tantalizing question. Was the myth created to obscure humanity's reliance on navigators, or to prevent the discovery and misuse of these potentially galaxy-altering technologies? The role of the warp itself adds another layer of intrigue. Fan theories often explore the possibility that the Royal Navigator myth was born not only from human ambition, but also from the influence of the Imperium. The warp, known for its chaotic and unpredictable nature, has been linked to countless strange phenomena throughout history. Some speculate that the myth might have been inspired by a singular event in which a navigator, or a group of them, achieved something so extraordinary it could only be explained as a moment of supernatural intervention. These theories suggest that the warp itself might have played a role in perpetuating the legend, its currents amplifying and distorting the tale as it spread across the galaxy. A particularly contentious topic in fan discussions revolves around the potential Xenos influence on the Royal Navigator story. Certain alien species, such as the Eldar, are known to possess unparalleled knowledge of the warp, raising questions about whether fragments of their lore or technology might have been co-opted by the Imperium to construct the myth. Some enthusiasts argue that the figure of the Royal Navigator could have been inspired by encounters with advanced Xenos navigators whose abilities dwarfed those of humanity. This idea, though controversial, adds a layer of irony to the myth. The Imperium, in its quest to glorify human superiority, might have inadvertently drawn inspiration from the very species it seeks to suppress. A lesser-known yet equally fascinating theory delves into the psychological impact of the myth on navigators themselves. The story of the Royal Navigator, while unifying, has also set an unattainable standard for those born with the Navigator gene. Many have speculated about the pressure this myth places on navigators, driving some to push their abilities to the brink in an attempt to live up to the legend. These efforts often end in tragedy, with navigators succumbing to psychic overload or warp-borne afflictions, their sacrifices quietly erased from the records to preserve the integrity of the myth. Lastly, the enduring enigma of the myth lies in its adaptability. Over the millennia, the story of the Royal Navigator has taken on new dimensions, evolving to suit the needs of different audiences within the Imperium. From a symbol of unity during crises to a cautionary tale for the disobedient, the myth's ability to shift and transform has ensured its survival in a galaxy where few truths remain constant. This fluidity raises a profound question. Does the Royal Navigator truly symbolize humanity's resilience, or is it a reflection of the Imperium's desperate need to control its narrative in an uncontrollable galaxy? The unanswered questions surrounding the Royal Navigator, the tantalizing hints of ancient knowledge, and the cultural impact of the myth make it one of the most enduring mysteries of the Imperium. It is a story that continues to evolve, not just within the universe of Warhammer 40,000, but also in the imaginations of its fans, who find themselves drawn to its paradoxes and possibilities. Throughout the history of the Royal Navigator myth, certain individuals played pivotal roles in shaping, preserving, and challenging the narrative. These figures, whether through ambition, conviction, or desperation, left indelible marks on the unfolding story, embodying both its heroism and its darker undertones. Their strengths and weaknesses offer a glimpse into the complex web of human motivations that perpetuated the greatest lie in Imperial history. One of the most influential figures associated with the Royal Navigator is Lucien Marovic, a revered patriarch of House Marovic. Known for his extraordinary political acumen and unyielding resolve, Lucien was instrumental in weaving the myth into the tapestry of Navigator lore. As a staunch advocate for the unification of the Navigator houses, he saw the creation of a singular, idealized figure as a means of consolidating power and staving off external threats. His charisma and ability to command loyalty ensured widespread acceptance of the narrative within his house and beyond. Yet, Lucien's ambition was not without cost. His unwavering belief in the necessity of the myth led him to silence dissenting voices, earning him a reputation as both a visionary and a ruthless autocrat. Another key figure in the myth's evolution was Archivist General Theodoric Kin, a high-ranking member of the Adeptus Administratum. Theodoric's role in codifying the Royal Navigator into official records was both meticulous and deliberate. A man of precision and foresight, he understood the power of narratives in shaping the Imperium's stability. Theodoric saw the myth as a tool to inspire unity across sectors, particularly during periods of warp turbulence and interstellar unrest. However, his obsession with control and perfection often blinded him to the human cost of maintaining such a vast fabrication. Theodoric's unwavering commitment to preserving the story led to the erasure of conflicting evidence and the quiet removal of individuals who posed a threat to the integrity of the tale. In stark contrast to these architects of the myth stands Captain Alina Valor, a maverick rogue trader who became an unwitting catalyst in its propagation. Alina's first-hand accounts of miraculous warp journeys, exaggerated by her natural flair for storytelling, were among the earliest public references to the Royal Navigator. A fiercely independent and daring individual, Alina thrived on the fringes of Imperial society, where rules were more malleable. Her tales, though embellished for effect, added a layer of mystique to the myth, further blurring the line between fiction and reality. While her actions were not driven by malice, they inadvertently strengthened a narrative that would later be used to manipulate and control countless lives. Among the challengers of the myth was Navigator Orson Kale, a dissident from House Kale who dared to question its validity. Orson's sharp intellect and probing curiosity set him apart from his peers, driving him to uncover inconsistencies in the official accounts. His courage in pursuing the truth, even at great personal risk, earned him both admiration and enmity. Orson's ultimate fate, disappearance under suspicious circumstances, remains a point of contention and speculation, with some believing he was silenced to protect the narrative. His story serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers faced by those who challenge entrenched lies. A darker counterpart to Orson is Inquisitor Reyna Drakkar, a staunch defender of the myth and an enforcer of its secrecy. Reyna's unwavering loyalty to the Imperium and her belief in the necessity of control made her a fearsome figure in the effort to suppress dissent. Known for her sharp mind and unrelenting methods, she sought to root out those who questioned the Royal Navigator's existence, wielding fear as a weapon against potential heretics. While her actions ensured the myth's survival, they also left a trail of broken lives and shattered trust. Reyna's cold pragmatism highlights the moral compromises often made in the name of Imperial stability. On the periphery of the narrative is Elara Sen, a disillusioned chronicler who uncovered fragments of the truth while compiling historical records. Elara's keen analytical mind and deep knowledge of Imperial history made her uniquely equipped to piece together the inconsistencies surrounding the Royal Navigator. Unlike others, her approach was marked by a quiet determination to preserve the truth, even if it meant concealing it from the wider Imperium to avoid mass unrest. Elara's internal conflict between her duty to truth and her fear of destabilizing the Imperium encapsulates the moral complexities inherent in the myth. These figures, each in their own way, contributed to the enduring power of the Royal Navigator story. Some sought to harness it for unity and survival, others for personal ambition or preservation of power, while a few dared to challenge its veracity. Their strengths, charisma, intellect, and resolve were matched by their flaws, from blind ambition to moral compromise. Together, they shaped a narrative that transcended its original purpose, becoming both a beacon of hope and a shadow of manipulation in the galaxy-spanning saga of humanity. The Royal Navigator myth, while firmly entrenched in the fabric of Imperial history, remains a source of ongoing debate and speculation. It is surrounded by questions that have no definitive answers, theories that challenge its official narrative, and mysteries that continue to captivate historians, scholars, and fans alike. These unresolved issues provide fertile ground for discussion, each one offering a new layer of complexity to an already enigmatic tale. One of the most hotly debated questions is whether the warp crisis that supposedly necessitated the creation of the Royal Navigator was entirely natural. Some theorists argue that it may have been artificially induced by factions within the Navigator houses or other Imperial institutions. The timing of the crisis, coinciding with political upheaval and escalating tensions among the houses, has fueled suspicions that it was orchestrated as a pretext to consolidate power. If true, this would cast the entire myth in a far more sinister light, transforming it from a symbol of unity to a calculated act of manipulation. Another lingering question revolves around the true extent of the Navigator House's genetic experiments. While their role in advancing humanity's ability to traverse the warp is well documented, there are persistent rumors that these experiments went far beyond what is publicly acknowledged. Some believe that the myth of the Royal Navigator was partially inspired by attempts to engineer a navigator with unparalleled abilities, a project that may have yielded disastrous results. These theories often point to the unexplained disappearances of prominent navigators and the occasional references to failed prodigies in fragmented records. The nature of the myth's integration into the ecclesiarchy's broader religious framework also raises intriguing questions. While the story of the Royal Navigator is not overtly theological, its alignment with Imperial doctrine and its symbolic resonance suggest deliberate crafting. Some theorists posit that the ecclesiarchy's involvement was more profound than publicly admitted, with elements of the clergy potentially using the myth to further their own agendas. Did the ecclesiarchy subtly co-opt the narrative to reinforce humanity's dependence on the Emperor's divine plan? Or was their role merely one of opportunistic adaptation? Perhaps the most tantalizing mystery is the persistent rumor of a real figure or event that may have served as the kernel of truth behind the myth. Some claim that the Royal Navigator legend might be an exaggerated account of a single extraordinary navigator whose feats were later embellished and adapted. Others suggest it could be based on an experimental device or ancient relic that temporarily granted unprecedented navigational capabilities. These theories are difficult to verify, as any evidence that might substantiate them has been systematically erased or obscured. The potential involvement of xeno-species in the origins of the myth is another point of contention. Certain alien civilizations, particularly those with advanced knowledge of the warp, are suspected of having influenced early human navigation techniques. Could fragments of alien technology or insights have been misinterpreted or deliberately repurposed to construct the story of the Royal Navigator? If so, this would not only undermine the myth's credibility, but also challenge the Imperium's narrative of human supremacy. One of the more esoteric theories involves the Imperium itself. The warp's chaotic nature and its ability to shape reality through belief have led some to speculate that the Royal Navigator could be a manifestation of collective human will. In this view, the story's widespread acceptance and the faith placed in it might have created a psychic echo in the warp, giving rise to phenomena that seem to validate the myth. This idea blurs the line between fiction and reality, suggesting that the myth, while fabricated, might have inadvertently become real in some capacity. Another unresolved issue concerns the long-term impact of the myth on the Navigator houses themselves. While the story has undeniably bolstered their position within the Imperium, it has also placed immense pressure on them to live up to an impossible standard. Has the myth fostered a culture of secrecy and internal strife as houses vie to protect their perceived role as the custodians of the Royal Navigator's legacy? Or has it united them against external threats, creating a fragile but enduring cohesion? Finally, there is the question of why the myth has been so fiercely protected over millennia. The lengths to which the Imperium has gone to suppress dissenting accounts and preserve the official narrative suggest that the truth, if revealed, would have profound consequences. What is it about the Royal Navigator that makes the lie so indispensable to the Imperium's stability? Is it merely a tool of propaganda? Or does it conceal a deeper, more unsettling truth about humanity's relationship with the warp and its own history? These unanswered questions and speculative theories ensure that the Royal Navigator remains one of the most enigmatic and provocative subjects in Imperial lore. They invite endless debate, encouraging fans and scholars to delve deeper into the labyrinthine complexities of the myth, searching for fragments of truth in a galaxy where lies often hold more power than reality. The long-term consequences of the Royal Navigator myth are as complex and multifaceted as the narrative itself. Its persistence has shaped the Imperium in profound ways, influencing not only humanity's present, but also its potential future. The myth's impact on cultural, political, and technological aspects of the galaxy cannot be overstated, yet its eventual unraveling or continued perpetuation poses significant questions about the trajectory of human civilization. One of the most enduring effects of the myth has been its role in maintaining cohesion within the Imperium. By providing a unifying symbol, the story has helped to suppress dissent, bolster morale, and reinforce faith in humanity's mastery of the warp. However, as warp storms grow more frequent and unpredictable, the cracks in the myth's foundation may begin to widen. If the populace were to lose faith in the navigators or discover the truth about the Royal Navigator, the psychological blow could destabilize entire sectors, leading to unrest and rebellion. The myth's durability, while a source of stability in the short term, carries the risk of catastrophic collapse if the lie is ever exposed. On a more personal level, the myth has deeply influenced the Navigator houses, shaping their self-perception and internal dynamics. The pressure to live up to the legend of the Royal Navigator has driven them to ever more dangerous experiments and ambitious projects, often at great cost to their members. This relentless pursuit of excellence, while yielding occasional breakthroughs, has also left them vulnerable to internal divisions and external exploitation. In the long run, the myth may prove to be as much a curse as a blessing, fostering a culture of secrecy and paranoia that could erode their strength from within. From a technological standpoint, the myth has spurred innovation in warp navigation as the Navigator houses strive to maintain their perceived supremacy. Yet, this progress has come at the expense of broader exploration into alternative methods of interstellar travel. The focus on preserving the narrative has diverted resources from investigating non-warp-based technologies, such as gravitic propulsion or other relics of the Dark Age of technology. If the myth were to be dismantled, it could open the door to a renaissance of technological advancement, freeing humanity from its reliance on the warp and the navigators. On the other hand, such a shift would also disrupt the existing power structures, potentially leading to chaos as new hierarchies emerge. The broader implications of the myth's exposure extend beyond humanity. Many Xenos species view the Imperium's reliance on the navigators as a key vulnerability. If the truth about the Royal Navigator were revealed, it could embolden these factions to exploit the resulting instability. At the same time, the removal of the myth might force the Imperium to adopt more aggressive strategies, leading to an escalation in conflicts with alien civilizations. The fallout from such a shift would ripple across the galaxy, affecting countless worlds and species. Another long-term consequence of the myth is its influence on the Imperium's cultural identity. The story of the Royal Navigator has become deeply embedded in the rituals, traditions, and collective memory of humanity. Its unraveling would not only challenge the authority of the Navigator houses, but also raise broader questions about the integrity of Imperial history. If one of the Imperium's most cherished legends is proven false, what other truths might be called into question? This potential erosion of trust in Imperial institutions could either catalyze reform or trigger a period of widespread disillusionment. In an alternate scenario where the myth never existed, the Imperium's history might have unfolded quite differently. Without the unifying narrative of the Royal Navigator, the Navigator houses could have fractured under the weight of their rivalries, leaving humanity's warp travel capabilities in jeopardy. This, in turn, might have stifled the Imperium's expansion, resulting in a smaller, more vulnerable empire. However, the absence of the myth might also have encouraged earlier exploration of alternative technologies and strategies, potentially fostering a more resilient and adaptable civilization. Looking to the future, the myth's legacy poses a paradox for humanity. Its continued existence offers stability and a semblance of order in an otherwise chaotic galaxy, yet it also perpetuates dependence on a fragile system. Conversely, its dismantling could pave the way for progress and innovation, but at the risk of destabilizing the Imperium. The balance between maintaining the lie and seeking the truth will likely define humanity's path in the millennia to come. Ultimately, the Royal Navigator myth is a testament to the power of belief and the delicate interplay between truth and fiction. Its long-term significance lies not only in what it has achieved, but also in the choices it forces upon humanity. Whether it remains a pillar of Imperial society or crumbles under the weight of its contradictions, its impact will continue to shape the galaxy for generations to come.